Hello everyone, welcome to the first episode of my series where I'm going to be showing you how to set up your own home lab to deploy your web apps from your own bare metal server. We're going to be using Ubuntu server from this video. I'm going to show you how to set up the server itself. I'm going to show you how to create installation media. I'm going to show you how to install on a virtual machine if that's what you need to do. We're going to set up, basic users. We're going to set up security, so that's uncomplicated firewall and Fail2Ban. If we want to stand out in tech now and go from devs to software engineers, then we got to do things that other people really just aren't willing to do. So without further ado, let's get the video started and let's get right into it. All right, so the first thing that we're going to do here is we are going to download Ubuntu server. So I'm going to put all the links to everything in the description, so you won't have to look for anything. Everything that we work with here or that we download here is going to be available. So you're going to download Ubuntu server from the official Ubuntu website. And so you're going to see desktop, server, core, cloud. So we're going to be working with server. If you download desktop, if you're working on a bare metal host, you can technically do that. Now, I wouldn't recommend it because the desktop version comes with what's called Genome or GNOME, however you want to pronounce it. And that's basically like the graphical interface. Now, the thing with the graphical interface is you're never going to be using that for the server. Most likely, depending on where you set your server up and everything, in your home, you're not going to actually be accessing the server from the actual bare metal host. I never access my server from the bare metal host. I always use this laptop that I'm actually working with now, and I just SSH into it, and we'll talk about what that is later. Now after that, if you're doing this on a bare metal host, which I would really recommend, if you're going to be following along with this series, I would recommend doing this from a bare metal host. And why do we want to do that? We want to do this from a bare metal host because we want to have, for one, real life and infrastructure experience. So you want to have a real life example of what it would be like to work with real infrastructure. Companies are going to want to see that. They're going to like to see that. And that's really going to help you stand out. So if you're going to do that, you're going to have to make what's called installation media. So you are going to need some type of USB. I'll put one that I recommend in the description as well. But you're going to download this. It's called Rufus, and Rufus is going to allow you to use to make installation media with that USB. So now, for the sake of the video, I'm going to show you how to make the installation media, but there's really no way I can reliably show you plugging it in and doing all this setup. It's very difficult to show that. So I can just tell you that what you're going to end up doing is plugging in the installation media into the bare metal host that you want to install on, and then when you do that, you're just going to access the boot menu on your computer. Some computers it's F12, some computers it's F2. It depends on the PC. But you're going to access the boot menu, and then you're going to make sure to select the installation media that you're going to create. For the sake of this video, so I can actually show you the setup of setting up Ubuntu, we're going to be using a VirtualBox virtual machine. But everything that we do on the virtual machine works on the bare metal host. It's actually probably going to work better on the bare metal host than it's going to end up working on the virtual machine. But we're going to see how it goes. So, all right, let's just get started with all that. So I already have Ubuntu server downloaded. It would take long for me to sit here and try to show you how to do that. So what we're going to end up doing is we're going to access Rufus. Click yes with that. Sure. So we're gonna find our drive, and it's gonna be this one right here. So this is a 128 gigabyte USB drive. We're going to select our Ubuntu. So go. And then so now of course we're going to just let this do its thing down here. When it says ready, then all you got to do is click start. I just want to, because I don't want it to do the whole drive. So let's just say we'll give up 50 gigabytes of the drive. You're not going to need that much space. Well, it depends on what you're hosting, so it's actually not true. Well, actually, so persistent partition size we don't really need, because this is just for the sake of installation media. You would really only need that if you were going to be hosting Linux on this drive, which you can do. If you really wanted to do that, you could. So with that, then all we're going to do is click start and write an ISO image and click OK. Yes, of course. Yes. So we're gonna let that do its thing. No, I guess it's not gonna take as long as I thought. Yes it is. Deceptive. Alright, so really we're not gonna end up using that anyway for the sake of this video. So we're gonna let that do its thing. And while that's doing that thing, I'm gonna actually show you how to set up the virtual machine in VirtualBox. So you're gonna click new here, and it's gonna end up being the same deal. So we're just gonna call this 20xx VM, and we are gonna select other, and very similar to what we did with the creating the installation media, we're just gonna go to our ISO, and we are going to, so we don't want it to install unattendedly, because I want to show you guys, how we actually do this. So I'm gonna name this here 20xx. I'm gonna set a password here. Alright, and then we're just going to click next. So I'm gonna give this a little bit more memory than this, just for the sake of, if you don't give it any memory, it will go really slow, really slow, and that's just not what we want. So I'm gonna give it at least 4,000 megabytes of memory. Processors, let's give it at least 2 CPUs. You know what? I'm gonna go up to 4. Alright. Create the virtual hard disk. Yeah, 25 gigs is fine. Using existing virtual hard disk, we don't have one. So there we go. And then we're just gonna click finish on that. Okay, so I think Rufus is done. Oh, not quite. There we go. So, not sure as much as again. Not currently supported. Multiple applications. Let's just cancel it. Alright. So let's see if I can full screen this. There we go. Okay, so make sure you pay attention to this, because you do not want to get stuck like inside of your virtual machine. So for me, it's going to be right control and F to get out. So okay, here we are. So we're just going to give this a second, let it do its thing. So most likely, you know, I'm gonna end up like blowing this up because, and you probably don't even see it because I already did it, but there's some resolution issues that come when you're using virtual machines. It's kind of why I don't prefer virtual machines. I never did. But I will also say, if you do decide to end up using the desktop version of Ubuntu for this, you need to be aware that it's gonna run terribly. Like, I mean, unless you're using like a gaming computer to do this, it's gonna run really bad. It's gonna run really slow, and it's gonna have issues. And this is a gaming laptop, and I've even tried to run virtual machines on it, and just nothing but issues. And I think that this has a 1050 Ti, so that's nothing crazy, but you know, it's decent. You would think that's enough to run an operating system, but I guess 2 operating systems at once is a no-go. So just make sure you're being aware of that, and you know, you're definitely at least thinking about what you're doing before you decide to go ahead and use the desktop version. All right, welcome back everyone. So we did do a cut there because the installation took a long time. So we're back in here now, so we're gonna get back to it. So there's a couple of things that we're gonna want to do first and foremost here. So the first thing, of course, is going to be that we need to log in. Let me make one thing really clear. Your username is case sensitive. I'm gonna leave it up to you to figure out why I'm making sure to make such a point of that. Your username is absolutely case sensitive, so make sure that you don't make any mistakes with that. So, all right, here we are in our virtual machine. Welcome to Ubuntu server. So now what are we going to want to do first? So the very first thing that we're going to want to do here is we're going to want to set up what's called sudo. So sudo actually stands for super user do. And why do we need that? We need super user do because a lot of commands, a lot of things that we're going to need to do are going to require high level privileges that our base user just does not have. So the first thing we're going to want to do is always, before you do anything, always call apt update. We can't even do it because we need to have, we kind of already need to have it. So, all right, you're going to need to, let me see. Actually, there's a good chance that it came with it. Let's actually, fingers crossed. And if it did, I'll still be able to show you. Yeah, so, it actually came with it, so that's good. There we go. So just for the sake of, you know, showing it, I'll still show it, but just know that it actually comes with sudo. But so you're gonna want to apt install sudo because, you know, maybe you're using a different see, so this actually shows, like, don't ever forget to use sudo because whatever you do is just not gonna work. So it's already installed. If you wanted to add a user, then you're gonna want to do user mod ag sudo, and then it's gonna end up saying that I already did it, but this is the command that you want to use. So user modify this flag -ag, not dash ag sudo, the user that you want to add. So you do that, and it's going to say permission denied because, again, we can't access it without sudo. So there we go. And, you know, nothing really happened because it's already added, but just for the sake of the video, I wanted to show you how to do it. All right, everyone, welcome back again. So I did take the liberty of moving us over to a much better terminal than the one we were working with because that one is pretty boring. So we're still in our virtual machine, but we actually did do SSH, and we're actually working now natively from the Windows PC. If you guys want a video on how to do that, you know, leave it in the comments and I will make a video on how you do that. So the first thing I want to show you guys is how you set a static IP, and that is going to end up being really important. So why is setting a static IP so important? Setting a static IP is really important because you are going to have to, okay, and that's what are going to have to set a static IP, because what routers do is routers actually change the IP address, I believe once a day. So for every device on the router, it'll assign a different IP once a day. So if you don't set a static IP, then you might configure things to work with that IP address that your device is using that day, and then the next day it no longer works. So for obvious reasons, that's not practical and we don't want that. So we're going to avoid having that happen by just setting a static IP. So how are we going to set our static IP? We're going to go into this file. So it's going to be this file on a VM. But if you are on the bare metal host, it's much more likely to be 00 installer config.yaml. But no matter what, it's always going to be in the /etc/netplan folder. So once you take care of that, you're going to make sure that your file looks like this. So, okay, let's get into specifics though. So you're gonna add this addresses if it's not already there. So if this line is not already there, you gotta make sure to add it. So your default gateway you're gonna have to find on your router, because it is different for every single person. The default gateway is not gonna be the same for everyone, but you need to make sure you have this gateway for attribute here, and that it has the correct value. And then your address you can set to whatever you want. So these last two numbers are what are going to change, and you're going to add this /24. But these last two numbers are what are going to change. So I know the one for my bare metal host is 10.0.0.100, and for the VM I set it to .50. So that's up to you. And you're also going to add this name servers here, and that's going to have its own attributes. And you're going to have 8.8.8.8 and 1.1.1.1. So as long as you click this, and make sure you set DHCP4 to false. That has to be false, or none of this is going to work. So after you set up your static IP, I'm not actually even going to write to that. After you set up your static IP, now you're good. So now when we do the next episode, which is on Nginx, and we start setting up our actual server, it's not going to change from day to day. It's going to remain constant, and it's going to keep working, for the long term. So after we set up sudo and our static IP, now we're going to set up what's called uncomplicated firewall. So why do we need uncomplicated firewall? Uncomplicated firewall is really important. Uncomplicated firewall is essentially going to stop you from being susceptible to any type of attacks from another network. So it will block any type of access on any port as long as you set that as a rule. So first, of course, we're going to want to install it. So we're going to use our sudo apt install uncomplicated firewall, and we're going to use this Y flag here. All right, so we're going to have that installed, and then we're actually going to check the status. Sudo UFW status post. All right, so it is inactive, and that's okay. We're going to actually set some so what we're going to do first and foremost, so first we need to make sure to allow SSH, because you are most likely not going to want to work on your bare metal host. You might have a laptop or somewhere where you actually work. Maybe you want to work at your desk, and you're going to want to work from there. So you're going to always make sure that you allow SSH. If you don't, then it's you're never going to be able. You're going to have to always work directly from your bare metal host. So wherever it is in your home, that's where you're working. So make sure that you allow SSH. You're also going to allow port 22, because that's actually the port that SSH uses. So you're going to allow port 22. Make sure, especially for the purposes of this video, now depending on what you're using your server for, you might not need to, but for the purpose of this series, we're going to definitely allow TCP. we're going to definitely allow TCP, because TCP is actually where your websites are going to be, the port that your websites are going to be on. That's the default port for HTTP. So if you don't have it on that port, then like when you deploy web apps, like you're going to have like weird colon and port numbers in your URLs, and we don't want that, obviously. And then finally, we're going to make sure that we allow 443, because that is the port for HTTPS, and HTTPS is the secured version of HTTP. So we want to make sure we have all that. And now finally, now that we have allowed all the things that we do want, we're going to make sure that we default deny incoming. So anything that is not allowed is going to automatically be declined. So anything incoming is going to default deny. So let's just actually make sure, see if we can see our rules here. Well, I guess we don't really need to. All we need to do is make sure that we enable the firewall. Yes. Okay, and then we're all good. And see, we didn't get kicked out because we already enabled SSH, so we're good on that. So the last thing that we're going to want to need to do today for our security features is that we're going to want to add in Fail2Ban. So Fail2Ban is essentially going to make sure that if any external host tries to repeatedly connect to the server and fails, that it will just ban that IP. So it just cannot connect to our server at all. That's really important, because that's going to protect the server from brute force attacks. Because you can have someone who will just relentlessly keep trying passwords until they eventually get in, and then that's all your data, especially if you're hosting databases, that's all your data cooked, that's everything cooked. So we don't want that. So we're going to sudo apt install Fail2Ban. So that's going to install for us there. All right, so now that our installation is complete, now we're going to go into our config file, and we're going to start setting our rules for Fail2Ban. So first and foremost, what we're actually going to need to do is we're going to sudo, we're going to actually copy this config file to make sure that we don't mess it up and then not have a version to use anymore. So a version that's usable. Okay. Fail2Ban /jail.conf. All right, and we're going to cp that into /etc/fail2ban /jail.local. So all right, now we've copied the file, and now we're going to actually go inside of it. And we're really only checking to ensure that SSHD is enabled. So, all right, it's looking like it actually is not. So, I mean, you can go through this config file and just make sure that everything is actually good. It actually might be enabled. Let's see. This is all the SSHD section, so. Actually, hold on, because it looks like it actually may not be enabled. Okay, so actually, I don't think we actually need to directly enable it. I think that it is enabled by default. I think as long as this mode is normal, that we are good. I think that the new version of it is just default enabled, so we should be good. So we're not even going to write to it because we didn't change anything. So with that, like I said, if at any point we continuously try to, if we have any host try to continuously access the server, it will just ban that host. So I could show you an example of that, but I would rather stay in this terminal. So I think that that's actually good for this episode. Everything there, if you want to test it yourself, you can just repeatedly try to SSH into the virtual machine from another device that you have running Linux, and you'll see that it eventually will ban it. But I will show you how to unban it, because that's pretty important. So if you have maybe accidentally banned an IP, or maybe you're using Fail2Ban to IP ban users within your app, then what you're going to do is run this command, and let's just, for the sake of example, say I want to unban the IP of this computer that I'm using right now. It's just going to say 0 because, obviously it's not banned. But if it was banned, then that's the command you're going to want to use. So, okay. So what did we do this episode? We set up Ubuntu on our virtual machine or our bare metal host, preferably. We have got our static IP set up, so that way when we're doing this, we're not going to have to worry about, the IP changing, and then, the next day, your apps are not up and they're not deployed, and then you have employers check in and they're like, well, these websites don't work. We set up our firewall, so we don't have to worry about anyone, any external ports being accessed without our permission. And we set up Fail2Ban, so we don't have to worry about brute force attacks on the server. So what's next for next episode? In next episode, we're going to set up Nginx, and Nginx is what's going to allow you to actually deploy your web applications. So that episode is going to be more fun than this one. We're finally in this good terminal here. It's a little more stylish than the basic server terminal that we're working with in the VM. And I'm going to be working with this VM from the start. I might here and there pop into Ultron, my own personal server, just to show you what a finished product would look like. But next episode, I'm actually going to be showing you a real life example of deploying a web app. So you're going to get to see what it actually looks like to get one out there using the bare metal host and this method. So thank you guys for watching. Please please subscribe, keep following the series. I'm also going to be doing personal vlogs, speaking about my experience as a CS grad, and I'm just going to be talking about the industry in general. I love tech, this is my life, and so if you also love tech, and if you're interested in continuing to learn and staying up to date on the industry, then keep following me. I'll keep you guys updated. Thank you for watching, and have a good one.